Hello, I'm Frost, and I'm here to tell you all about the next chapter of the XCOM series, and that is XCOM Chimera Squad. So, literally out of the blue, we have XCOM Chimera Squad, which is a continuation of the XCOM series, which is a turn-based strategy game by Firaxis. And it is set in the XCOM universe, but after the war. And we are in a city called City 31, which is populated by humans, aliens, and hybrids. But there's problems brewing, and there's insurgent groups at play. And this is where you come in. Chimera Squad is a motley crew, an elite squad which is helping 31 PD, the 31 Police Department, protect the city from growing threats using their APC to go to various events. Now this APC, which is almost like the A-Team, they all jump into a van and go heading off. You want to take some motion sickness pills because this thing's pretty wobbly. But apart from that, the new game mechanics are the thing that help differentiate this game from the crowd. And we'll come on to the game mechanics in a minute. But the main thing as well is that the skirmishes take place on a wide variety of sets or stages, which makes it really interesting. It goes from warehouses, then you're fighting in a factory, then you find yourself in an office block, then you're out on the street, and you're even in a nightclub at one point. It's quite fun fighting in that nightclub because depending on where you move, kind of the music changes and stuff, so nice little touch there. And to kind of tie it all together, there is a campaign, and the campaign is based on which insurgents you think were responsible for a crime that was committed. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that crime is, it's part of the campaign. I'll leave the surprise to you. And the whole story is told in a storyboard format, which is kind of very sort of familiar for those of you that have followed the XCOM series. And in true XCOM style, as well as having sort of different levels of difficulty, we have Iron Man, which only gives you one save, so you have to abort missions or whatever, but you have to just keep going no matter what. And for those of you that are real sort of pros at XCOM, you've got the hardcore mode, where you only get one save and you can't fail one single mission. You have to get every mission right. So good luck with you. I'm not a hardcore player. If you are, then brag about it in the comments. Now let's go on to the actual XCOM Chimera Squad. Now there are actually essentially 4 types of squad members. You have those that shoot range. So for example, that would be Godmother or Blue Blood. So Godmother's got a shotgun, Blue Blood's got a pistol. Godmother does loads of damage, Blue Blood does is much more accurate. Then you would have melee units, which are people like Cherub and Axiom. And then you have your tackle, and that would be Torque, who's a snake, which is just awesome. And you have Verve, who uses psionic powers. And we'll come on to kind of the specific abilities in a minute if you want. Actually, no, let's cover them now. So for example, Torque is a snake, and she can do this really wicked thing where she can just grab people with her tongue and grab enemies, and or friendlies for that matter. If you've got a friendly that's stuck out in the middle of nowhere and you need to pull them back because you're pulling your units back, she can help out there. Or she can grab an enemy with her tongue, pull them in, and then she can just wrap them around and keep them incapacitated for the time being. Or you've got Verve, who uses psionic powers to put someone into a stupor, which stuns them for either 1 or 2 turns, or can give them complete and absolute madness, and they then turn on the nearest person next to them and start shooting at them, whether they're friendly or enemies. So that's your tackle, and then you have your support units. So that's someone like Terminal or Patchwork. And these are critical for your units. Terminal is basically your healer, and can generally do other sort of jobs as well, which we'll come on to when we cover the breach mode. Now you can't rename these units, their names are fixed, but you know what, that's okay because each one is unique and you kind of get to really know them, and you get your favorites, and they all have their own little bit of banter and stuff, their own little talk and their own behaviors. And so I think that makes it much more interesting. You kind of get much more involved in those characters. Now there are some characters you can't rename, and those are the androids, and I will cover the androids when we get to the Armory. Now let's talk about game mechanics. So the things that are different with this is, first of all, you have this thing called a breach mode. Now the breach mode is kind of the initial entry into the stage where you're going to be fighting, and you are more often than not given an option of where you enter the building, and depending on where you enter the building or the stage, let's say it's the street for example, you will get different bonuses or buffs or nerfs depending on which entry you choose, and in some cases you've got multiple entries and you can move different units into different points of entry.
Breach, breach, breach.
And for some of these entries you need to have either certain items in your inventory.
Surprise.
So for example a breach charge will allow you to then breach through a wall and go through a wall, or you may need to go through a door that's locked, and then you will need a hacker like Terminal, the character called Terminal, in order to be able to unlock the door and use that point of entry. Then once you're actually you go into the breach mode, you get a nice little animation of all your squad members just piling into action, and once you're actually in, you will then basically sorry, I just lost my words for a minute there. You will then have a decision to make as to whether you shoot or you can use this special ability of your squad member. So if we take Talk, because Talk is my favorite, okay, she's a snake, she's my favorite, so she can do this poison spit instead of shooting and do damage that way, for example. And each squad member has their own ability. And then obviously if you choose to shoot, you can choose who to shoot. So you can either go for the one that offers the highest percentage of probability of success, or maybe there's somebody that's already been shot by one of your team members, and so it's better to actually go for that enemy instead. So already with the breach mode, you're kind of given different options and you've got different choices, and that's kind of a really interesting aspect of the game. Now once you're actually on grid, you have your usual action points, but what has really changed here, and something that I really like, is you get individual turn order. So if you look at the top right, you will see that you've got the order in which everybody's going to move. So unlike most turn-based systems where you move all your units at once and then the enemy moves all of their units, instead it's literally an individual turn-by-turn action system. And because of that, it really changes things up, because with Chimera Squad, every single one of your units has unique abilities and unique behaviours. And because of that, you've not only got to decide on where to move, what ability to use for each of your unit, but also you've got to take into mind your enemies and what order they're going to move in and where they are positioned on the grid. And what squad member is going to be available at what time to deal with certain units. So therefore, you've really got to sort of think about your moves and think well ahead in advance, sort of 3 or 4 moves in advance at least, to take into account, movements of your enemies and when and how you're going to be able to react with that and who is going to be able to react with that. So that makes it really, really interesting. And then finally, you've got this ability called Team Up, where you can move yourself up the timeline. So if you think that, for example, someone's going to get injured really badly, you can move Terminal up your timeline so that she can heal faster before other enemies get the chance to shoot one of your squad members, for example. So I think that is really, really interesting. Now the thing is if anybody dies, then you basically lose the game. So what happens is when you lose all your action points, your squad member will become unconscious. And then you have a fixed number of turns in which you need to stabilize that unit. So what will happen is that you either run over to your unit that's down and stabilize them, and any one of your squad members can do that, or you can use your support unit, which is like Terminal or Patchwork, to send in a gremlin, which is the name of your drone, to be able to stabilize that unit. So that unit is then unconscious for that whole mission. And a mission doesn't necessarily just include one stage. You may go into multiple rooms, one after the other. And in the case where you've got a squad member that's unconscious, then your androids, which I will come on to once again with the Armory, can step in and help out to replace your downed squad member. So there you go. So that kind of covers all of the on-grid stuff and the mechanics and things. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the main menu, and I'm just going to show you the few bits and pieces that are relevant to the game in terms of how everything fits together and how you level up, etc., etc. And this brings us on to the main interface. And on the main interface, we're going to kind of cover all the items so you kind of get an idea of how everything fits together. So right at the very top, we've got the city anarchy. Now this is the civil unrest status. Essentially, if this bar gets to the top, you've lost. And the way the city anarchy works, if we look at the map,
dozens of
okay, we're going to skip through all these items very quickly. You can see this is your city 31. And you can see that various items, so for example, Angler's Point up here has got unrest, and we need to kind of resolve that situation. And as unrest builds up, you have the option of either dealing with stuff yourself, so if you conclude missions in an area, that removes 3 points of unrest, or you can assign field teams. So for example, I've got a field team assigned at the moment. I have a security team. Now these field teams, as well as kind of controlling the unrest in your city, will then give you various bonuses on top of that. So with security, is every Friday you get a -2 to your unrest level, and you get +5 intel. If you do finance, you can see you get 5 credits of income and only -1 unrest, or with technology you get Illyrium. Now there's essentially 3 different types of currency. So we have Illyrium up the top here, okay, and that's to power projects in the assembly, which we'll come on to in a minute. We've got Intel, which allows us to buy those field teams that I just mentioned, or to upgrade them. And then you have credits, which allows you to buy kit for your team. So those are kind of the 3 main currencies. And if we actually come back from this map right now, what we can do is we can look at, first of all, the assembly. So the assembly, there we go, I've just upgraded my field teams to rank 2. This essentially is your research, and you can research different items, and this takes time and also will generally require energy. So you can see that this requires 70 Illyrium, which is the term for energy, and is going to take 8 turns. So we're going to begin that now and get that underway. There we go. And so if we go back very quickly, you can see that you can get enhanced assault rifles, enhanced submachine guns. You can get all different kinds of items and upgrade them with your research. Then if we go into Spec Ops, these are special ops. So these special ops, some of them you have to assign a unit to, some of them you don't. And so for example, right now I've got Blue Blood is working on legwork. And what that's going to do is it takes 3 turns, and then I will get 85 credits. Now, if I actually change the unit, then I lose all of the progress that I've made. So you basically have to commit a unit, and then you know that you can't use a unit from that point on. Now, obviously, when you start the game, you only start with 4 units, but you soon get the chance to add more units to your team, and then that's when you can start assigning to Spec Ops and so forth. So that's the Spec Ops side, so that basically gives bonuses to either Illyrium, Intel, or credits. Then we come on to training. Now training isn't just training, see I just upgraded patchwork there. Training also fixes things called scars. So if we select a unit, we take Godmother, you can see Godmother's got this kind of like this red downward chevron, and what it means is that she's been injured in battle and she has a scar. Now if we go to marksmanship, there we go, you could see that at the moment she's got this thing called a crit chance scar, and what it means is that her critical chances to critical chance hits has basically been nerfed, and until we remove that, it's going to be a constant issue for everything that she does in every mission thereon. And it can either affect crit chance, it can affect your movement points, and so if you've got an agent that's been scarred, you need to fix that. And so what we would do is we will begin that, and now she's currently assigned to my APC, to my little 18 van, and so I'm going to accept that and go back, and you can now see that I've got a spare slot up here for my team. So I need 4 team members when I go out on missions, but I have Patchwork, who's just come out of training, who I've given her 2 extra hitch points, so we're going to assign Patchwork, so then we know that we've now got our 4 units to go back out. So what I suggest is that as soon as you get a 5th unit, do not assign them to Spec Ops, leave them idle just in case one of them gets a scar. Then you can actually swap the units over and put them into training. So don't rush into the Spec Ops. There you go, a quick little tip as we're going along. So that's your training. We're going to skip the Armory just quickly. We're going to go straight into supply. And you can see that right now I have 45 credits, so it limits what I can buy, but you can get things like an expanded magazine, which increases your clip size. You can get extra padding, which improves your armor. You kind of get the idea. We get extra weave, which gives us this is the infiltrator, which allows us to go in through vents. We got the Mac weave, which gives us more movement. It gives us dodge, and therefore we get less chances of getting hit, especially during the breach, and so forth and so on. We get extra androids we can buy, auto key cards. So if you haven't got a terminal with you, you've got this as a utility that you can give to one of our other units so that you can get through doors. The breaching charge, which I mentioned earlier, which you're going to need to be able to breach into buildings through without using the doors. And then you get various grenades, which do various effects. And you get tracer rounds. You get the general idea. So all the different bits of kit that you can use for your units. Then, if we go into Scavenger, now Scavenger is something that, excuse me, only comes up every few turns. And the Scavenger shop is basically like the supply shop. I'll let X-Hive tell you all about it.
The Viper's Nest, a humble establishment in the fringe. As I'm sure you know, dangerous tech from the Advent days still turns up from time to time. The city pays well to anyone who turns it over, so I hire a network of scavengers to find this stuff.
There you go. Oh. So essentially what it is the stuff you can't actually build for yourself, but gives you extra bonuses. So for example, you've got the advanced stock here, which, you know, it still deals 2 damage to the target, whilst the basic one only deals 1. The normal auto loader only gives you 1 reload, this one gives you 3. And so therefore you can choose to either use your intel to buy these, or you can use it to get your field units. Now let's go on to the Armory. So we're going to go into the Armory here. And just before I go into the Armory, let me just jump back very quickly. You can see as well that I've got a promotion here for Verve, because Verve has basically been on combat and has done well, and I've used that unit a lot and has got a promotion. So we're going to come on to the promotion in the Armory. So there you go. So there's my crew right here. You can see Talk there on the side, just doing her moves. Transfixing. All right, so let's move on from that. So if we look at, for example, what's the name? Godmother. There we go. So Godmother, I've given her kind of all the loadouts. Now, for example, she's got a shotgun. So the shotgun is great, does loads of damage, but it's only got a clip size of 3. So it means every 3 shots you have to reload. So what I've done is I've given her the auto loadout, which gives her a free reload, so it doesn't take an action point. And then I've given her an expanded magazine as well, so we've got up to now 4 shots in the clip. So that makes things much, much better. Then because I've normally got her up front doing kind of loads of damage, I've given her 1 extra hit point, which is where the extra padding comes in. I've given her a breaching charge as well, so she can be one of the people that helps get through the walls. And then I've got a flashbang grenade for her as well. So you can see there's all the various different elements that you can add to your unit. Then if we go to Verve, you see, so Verve at the moment, if I go back 1, there we go. So Verve I can now promote. And so you get different levels of promotion as you move up. So he's already a deputy, and that deputy gives me levitation, which I use generally on breaches. So when you breach into a building, I can levitate someone that's undercover so that my other units can then get a clear shot at them. And now we can go up to field agent, and we've got a choice of 2 different options here. So I can use, for example, crowdsource, which gives me plus 5 aim or plus 10 critical chance, or I can get collar. And collar, what it does is it basically allows you to subdue enemies. And I don't think I mentioned that during the battle stages, that instead of just killing an enemy, you can subdue them. If you subdue an enemy, in other words, just render them unconscious, then you get bonuses for that to your intel, because you can then interrogate them back at base. And so I will take collar, because every time I use an ability from Verve on an enemy, they get a collar on them, and then that means that from that point on, if they get killed, instead of getting killed, they actually get rendered unconscious, and we can get them back for intel. So there you go, and that's upgraded my unit. And as you can see, you know, each unit has got its own abilities, you know, their own abilities, you know, which are very, very specific to them. Hi, Talk. There we go. You can tell she's my favourite character, right? You've got Youngblood there that's busy, you know, working on the Spec Ops, and then we got our androids down here. So even our androids, we can give them a loadout, as we build up our number of androids, we can upgrade them, you know, so we can, and those upgrades come in a little bit later in the game. And also, obviously, every single one of our units, we can give them their own look and feel, give them their own colors, etc. Just a nice little touch there. All right, so that covers that, and we're pretty much done. All right, so I hope you found that useful, and we're going to wrap it up with this. I think XCOM Chimera Squad as a turn-based strategy game is superb. On top of that, right up to the 1st of May 2020, it's on offer. It's already at a good price, you know, so kind of a really budget price. It's the price of a DLC, and you get like a complete game. And it's actually on offer until the 1st of May on Steam. And I can highly recommend this. I'm really enjoying playing this, and as you know, I love my strategy games. I'm really getting into the characters. I love the fact that, you know, I have to really think about how to use all of the abilities on my units in order to be able to succeed. XCOM has never been easy, you know, and it is challenging, and if you like that kind of thing, then I can highly recommend it. So if you liked this video, please give me a like. If you didn't, you can dislike me, that's okay, I can live with it. And please subscribe if you're into your sci-fi gaming, as I produce lots of content on a regular basis, and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of my next release. All right, thank you for watching. Until next time, bye.